Thank you, first responders. Thank our men and women in uniform. Thank you to our firefighters. Thank our police officers, our medics, our volunteers. When I was a deputy sheriff, it was so difficult for me to understand at times how people wanted to say just thank you. You would go and do something, maybe recover something from a burglary that was so sentimental to them, or help get someone to the hospital, and then they would say, thank you. I'd say, no, ma'am, that's my job. That's what I do. You see, this is my life, and I've dedicated it to serving others, to serve and protect. Those of you that are here today that were here 10 years ago are 10 years strong. You're 10 years better. You're 10 years more determined. We have done a remarkable job in Mississippi. You have done a remarkable job. Now, the man I'm going to introduce in just a moment was helped leading that effort. But it was really the people, the men and women on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, the first responders that were here before the storm had ended, going into harm's way. Some of you had lost your own homes, had nothing but the uniform that you wore. All had been washed away, as the song says so beautifully. But you came back, strong, determined. You see, everywhere that someone needed help, you were there. If they were lost and lonely, crying out, you were there. Their home and all that they owned were gone, and they were reaching out for someone. You were there. You have always been there, and you always will be there. It has been so since the beginning of time. It is innate within us to render aid and support those of us that believe that we can help others, and that is the best work of life. So we're here today to say thank you in our own special way. Now, as I thought about it all year as we created the commission to come down and remember this terrible storm, I thought about the loved and the lost, the 238 Mississippians that are gone and their families, and how we mourn for them, and we always will. But I also looked to the future and saw what you have done. I see what you've saved. I see what God has inspired here on this Mississippi Gulf Coast. I see these wonderful people that have come forward with their money and their treasures to say thank you. Walmart, what a remarkable sponsor. Island View. Yeah, give these guys a hand. All of them you see here. Hancock Bank. Team Waste. When people come forward and say, I will give what I have earned so that you can recognize those first responders, it comes from their heart. It is not an easy thing to do. But I thought, now that we're looking towards the future, let's see if we can't celebrate the victory, celebrate the successes, celebrate the survival and determination of a remarkable people here in this remarkable state on this Mississippi Gulf Coast. Deborah and I came down a couple of days ago. I remember I thought back to that first day I came down here like so many in our truck with water and bug spray and medical supplies, and I drove up to the Gulfport Fire Department. Pat was there, and Deborah had cooked a batch of brownies. And she had put them in a bag and put some pink ribbon on the top of it. I said, baby, I can't pull that pink ribbon now. You know, I'm going down there where guys are men and they're struggling and they've been working, and you've got this cute little pink ribbon on this bag. Take that off. She said, I want them to have it. Some of you, I hope, may have been there that day as we unloaded all of the truck, and then I brought out that big bag of homemade brownies. And believe me, to those first responders, it was a piece of home, something simple that the First Lady had done to let you know how much we care. She's done a remarkable job, and I'm very proud of her. Now, we've got one of the world's best entertainers, my friend Marty Stewart. He's going to be here in just a few minutes, so I'm not going to make any long speeches. We got another guy coming in that used to have a pretty important job, President of the United States. He'll be here in a little bit to honor you. But the man and the woman I'm about to introduce should also be honored. He was our Commander-in-Chief, General. He was the first responder. He was our responder-in-chief. He was the man that helped lead the remarkable effort that people around this world still look to and is an example of how to respond and how to rebuild and renew an entire area. Haley Barbour was there day and night. He was the face and the voice of the leadership of Mississippi, and all of us that wanted to express our desire to make sure that they knew we were coming back. This would not keep us down. But if Haley Barbour was the heart and the face and the voice, Marcia Barbour was the heart. They are here today to say thank you, and we should honor them for what they have been able to do during the most difficult of times and what they have done since. Ladies and gentlemen, the 63rd governor of the state of Mississippi, Governor Haley Barbour, and First Lady Marcia.
I'm not really on your program, but I have to say something. I thought I always knew what you did to protect our country and our land. And I think I was just stupid, because not until I was allowed to come down with y'all and really see the dedication, the courage on the convoy coming down the night of the storm. Everybody, 800,000 people when we were stopped cutting the way down behind MDOT. What were y'all doing? Trying to find out how your homes and your families were. So a thank you goes to your families too for allowing you to keep us safe. I can't tell you what I learned firsthand. The treasures and the moments that we've shared will be in our hearts forever. And I just thank you for allowing me to serve with you and serve the people of Mississippi, and thank the Lord Haley would give me both ears every night.
That's a hard act to follow. And I've been trying to follow for 44 years. You know, when you bear the brunt of the worst natural disaster in American history, as you on the Mississippi Gulf Coast and South Mississippi did, when you suffer the utter obliteration that Katrina carried with it all across the Gulf Coast, from Pearlington to Pascagoula, every community devastated. Hurricane force winds more than almost 200 miles north of Meridian. 47 of our counties were major disaster areas as far north as Columbus and Starkville. You know, you don't celebrate a terrible calamity like this. We commemorate it, we remember it, but I'm here to tell you there are things about Katrina that we should celebrate every day. Celebrate the strong, self-reliant people of Mississippi who got knocked flat by this awful disaster. And yet, they got right back up and hitched up their britches and went to work. Importantly, they went to work helping themselves, but also they went to work helping their neighbors and their communities. But I can tell you, those strong, resilient people could not have done it without you. they could not have done it without you. And it is altogether fitting and proper that we would be here today to thank you and indeed to celebrate the fact that there were thousands of first responders like you who did everything that could be done, and sometimes it seemed like more. I'll never forget Tuesday after the storm, we were flying over the coast in a helicopter. And I see some people in the room who were in that helicopter. And when you looked out the windows and saw the devastation, it looked like an atomic weapon had gone off in the sound. And the hand of God had wiped away the coast from some places for blocks, some places for miles. If somebody had told me sitting in that helicopter there would only be 238 people to die in the wake of Katrina, I would have said that's the most optimistic, Pollyannish, goofy idea I ever heard. 1,600 people died in New Orleans, and of course they had a terrible tragedy over there when the levees broke, but we're the ones that had the biggest storm surge ever recorded in the history of meteorology. 47 million cubic yards of debris left in the wake, and that just counts the amount the federal government helped us pay to remove. There was no way it would be that few in my mind. But thanks to people in this room and others like you, the search and rescue, the security, the fast reaction saved lives. And I look around and I think about first responders that were policemen and firemen and emergency medical technicians in the then 11 incorporated towns on the Gulf Coast and the 3 counties. But I also remember the people that came in from the rest of Mississippi. 19 search and rescue teams came in from around the state that Robert Latham had put together. We brought 1,000 National Guard, 200 of whom were pre-positioned in the 3 coast counties, and 800 Marcia rode down with them from Camp Shelby, along with another 120 highway patrol. And you remember what Highway 49 looked like, totally covered in timber and other debris, and MDOT crews had to clear out one lane for them to come down. It took about 6 or 7 hours to go less than 60 miles. But they were here and they were on duty that night. The first responders, people who were involved in the health with hospitals and doctors' offices, who immediately joined you to try to provide care and saved a lot of lives. I think about all the state first responders as well as the local first responders, and I thank God for you. I'm glad to get to thank you to your face. I also think about how our sister states helped us. I'm looking at General Leon Collins. When Katrina hit, he was the commander of the 155th Combat Brigade in Iraq, 3,000 Mississippi National Guard. We had other National Guard we brought in, but we brought in more than 10,000 National Guard from other states. Hat Cross brought that system here, and God bless them, and thanks to them. Bob Riley, the governor of Alabama, who was up for re-election the next year, and there'd been 10 feet of water that morning in downtown Mobile, sent 2 companies of Alabama National Guard military police straight to Mississippi Monday afternoon, saying he thought we needed them worse over here than they needed them in Alabama because of the devastation. Jeb Bush had pre-positioned his first responders in the Panhandle because we thought the storm might do like the previous two big storms, Ivan and Dennis, which right at the last jogged to the east and hit in Alabama and Florida. He sent them, and they got here before our people at Camp Shelby could get here, because the roads were generally more clear. There are lots of guys and gals just like you who came from other states. 46 states sent resources to Mississippi. And lots of those resources were people who were first responders, people who saved lives, people who made sure that we never lost civil order in Mississippi, and we did not in any county. My mama raised my two older brothers and me, and she used to tell us that crisis and catastrophe brings out the best in most people. And boy, did I see that time and time and time again in Mississippi. Our people weren't looking for a handout. They weren't looking for anybody to blame. They wanted to help themselves, but they could have never gotten to that point or made do the way they did without you. So this is a wonderful and appropriate event. I can't help but mention, though this is for our first responders, and rightly so, we also need to remember the 954,000 volunteers who came to Mississippi to try to help our people. They came from all over America, and that number, by the way, is not pulled out of a hat. We had 954,000 people who, over a period of 5 years, registered with a charity or a church that they came to work with. And they were phenomenal. And you know, the first year they got to do the glamorous work of cleaning up, of being down on their knees, scraping away the muck, of ripping sheetrock off the walls and tearing out floors, of washing mold off the studs before you could get started trying to rebuild. Because the first year we weren't doing much but cleaning up in most places on the coast. And do you know what their attitude was? The most common thing I had said to me by volunteers, and I met thousands of them over 5 years, they would say, "Governor, your people are so nice and they're so grateful. But you know, I feel like I got more out of this for myself than the good I've done for the people I came here to help." What a great comment about America. What a great comment about our people, but also a powerful comment about the religious foundation upon which our country was built. Because by and large, not exclusively, but by and large, these were people who came out of religious service. They went to their church and said, "We want to go help," or their church said, "We're going to get a bus and go to Mississippi. Who wants to go?" And they came by the hundreds of thousands. And what became clear to me, it was their service to their God. And we had every denomination, Protestants, Catholics, Muslims, Jews, you name it. They all came, and they came to serve. They came to serve. I have to tell you a little story. It's hard to be a politician without at least having one story. There was a Mormon group in Salt Lake City called the Morrell Corporation, and they called me because they had built most of the temporary housing in Salt Lake City for the 2002 Winter Olympics. And they wanted to put that skill to work because they knew that we didn't have anything like the kind of housing, and that the federal government doesn't allow you to use FEMA money to house workers, much less to house volunteers. So we found them a place at Buccaneer State Park. They came in and, man, they knew their business. Those of you who saw it, they built a tent, really, about the size of a football field or bigger. It slept 700 people. They put in the bathrooms, the showers, the air conditioning, the electricity. Wouldn't take a penny. They would not take any money from the state or from the federal government. It was their religious service. They were doing this for their church, and the company paid part of it, the foundation paid part of it, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon church, paid part of it. They got me and Marcia to come down for the grand opening, which we were thrilled to do, over near Waveland. Drove up, and Lord, there's a tent. I mean, it's just a whole lot bigger than this building we're in right now. And I got out, and one end of it was open like this, had a roof but didn't have any walls, and that's where they were going to serve the lunch. I took about 4 steps out of the car and looked up, and there was a great big motorhome. On the side of it had written in letters about this tall, Adventists in Action. Well, here's this great Mormon event, and the Seventh-day Adventists are cooking lunch. I thought that was pretty funny myself, actually. So I got up to speak, and I said, how many of y'all are Mormons? About 225, 250 people, maybe 20. None of these people are from Mississippi. How many of y'all are Seventh-day Adventists? About 6. So you got 220-something people who are neither of the things, and I was too dumb to realize what that meant. And I said, well, what are you? Well, they were all Baptists and Methodists and Catholics and Presbyterians, Episcopalians, Pentecostals. They were all of the same denominations as our churches, because that's how they got here. I'm a Methodist from Minneapolis, and they send me, I want to volunteer, they send me down to the Methodist Church in Ocean Springs or Bay St. Louis or wherever. So all these people are here out of religious service, out of service to their God. And the differences of theology are absolutely irrelevant to them because they're united in one thing. I thought, what a great testimonial about our country. And then as Marcia and I walked back to the car, a little man walked up to me, about 75, I'd say. It's in late October. He said, Governor, my name's Harold, and I'm from New York City. I said, Harold, thank you so much for coming. Then Harold said, last night I called my son, who is a rabbi, and I said to my son, should I come home for the high holy days, the most sacred days on the Jewish calendar, which were about to start? And Harold told me, no, Dad. Harold's son told me, Harold said his son told him, no, Dad, you should not come home because you are probably closer to God where you are now. What a... So as we salute you, I hope we always will remember those volunteers. Let me close by saying, Mama used to always punctuate the sentence about crisis brings out the best in most people with this following sentence. But crisis does not create character. Crisis reveals character. The spirit and character that we saw of the people of Mississippi after Katrina was there before Katrina. It was there before Haley Barbour. It was there all along. We only got to see it in the greatest crisis in the history of our state, and what I hope will 100 and 1,000 years from now still be the greatest crisis in the history of our state. But I know if a worse one comes along, the good people of Mississippi are up to it with your help. Thank you.